Good day, good day. I would like to welcome you all. I hope my screen is not misbehaving on me. Welcome you all. Trust you had a good day, and we continue with our episodes that we do at Richard Training Academy. My name is Richard. Let me start by saying Richard Training Academy is a training and consulting business. We consult on a number of issues. We train on a number of issues. You might go to our website, richardacademy.coza, where you would get more details in terms of what do we offer as the institution, with a number of programs there which I think they could be of interest to you. This thing is I'm not so sure if the screen is doing what is supposed to be done. I think so, but there seems to be delay. Okay, yeah, let's delve into the matter. The agenda is, as you can see, we'll discuss the introduction of M&E framework and some concepts of M&E, why is it important, the components of M&E, the planning part of M&E, the types of evaluation, the indicators, the data collection methods, analysis and interpretation of data, reporting and using M&E results, and the challenges and the best practice. Then we shall end there. So let's delve into what is the M&E framework actually. This is a structured approach that guides the systematic monitoring and evaluation of programs to assess their effectiveness, efficiency, relevance, sustainability, and impact. So from this definition, it is very clear that organizations must have the M&E framework, because it talks about a structured approach that will guide organizations in terms of conducting systematic monitoring and evaluation of different initiatives, whether it's a policy, it's a program or project. But why are we doing that? To make sure that we could see whether these programs whether they've been effective, whether they've been efficient, whether they're relevant, and the sustainability of that, and what then is the impact of these programs or policy or projects. And monitoring, of course, is a continuous process of assessing the performance of a project or activity to achieve the goals of the project. You have number in terms of your implementation plan, for instance. You have a number of activities that must be done. So monitoring, what it does is that it assesses all those, it collects data. That data, it informs whether the activities in question are still in line in terms of the plan. But with regard to PEG2 evaluation, it's a periodic assessment of project efficiency, effectiveness, and impact. So in other words, evaluation is concerned much with efficiency, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability. When we evaluate, many times we are looking at whether the processes that we're using, were they efficient, was the program effective in its implementation, after implementation or during the process. What is the impact? Remember, the impact is a long term, results. So what is the impact of this and the sustainability part of it? But what is the purpose of M&E framework is to improve project management, accountability, and learning. In other words, with M&E framework, organizations are able to ensure that the employees, the stakeholders, and everyone, they are able to improve, whether it's a policy, it's a project, it's a program, but also the issue of accountability, because you have data that will inform you what must be done. And from that, you can learn where your failures have been or where your successes have been. So let's delve into the issue about why is this important? Why monitoring and evaluation is important? It is important because it helps us with accountability. If you are running a project, a program, or you are managing a policy, the process of monitoring and evaluation, talks to the issue of continuous assessment, the issue of collecting data to assess the efficiency, the effectiveness. All those issues, they help us to account. And we're accounting to our stakeholders, we're accounting to our funders, we're accounting to our beneficiaries. Stakeholders could be your bosses, stakeholders could be your other division. Maybe this project that you are doing is spending money, and you need to account to finance in terms of how much you've been spent, or you are involved in a project where you have to account to other people, maybe your funders. Maybe it's a project that was funded by an NGO or funded by an international organization or a government institution or private institution. So you should be able to account to that. But it also helps to enhance learning. We are saying that with the M&E, it gives you that opportunity to learn quite a lot, because from the results that you have found when you were assessing the program or policy, you are able to know where are your weaknesses, where have you failed, where you have made impact. Out of that, you are able to draw lessons and make a positive out of it. One other issue is improve decision making. I always say that decisions must be based on data. So you don't just decide, because when you just decide, chances are your decisions, because they're not based on data, they could be wrong. And when they are wrong, it could be costly. Companies to pay for the mistakes of the decision that you've taken. Companies have paid a lot of money. I mean, if you look at the millions that South African police services have to pay, whether it's for wrongful arrest, whether it's for lots of things, it is an issue of a wrong decision, which the person who would have made that didn't have much data to convince himself that indeed this person can be arrested. That is why SAPS today, they have to pay a lot of money. Department of Health, whether it's in provinces, the national, they pay a lot of money because some people were in hospitals, maybe there was maltreatment, some decisions that were taken that were wrong. So you would find that because of these decisions that are not based on data, some are irrational, they end up being irrational decisions, they cost companies a lot of money. So that's why we say the importance of monitoring evaluation is that it would also help you to improve your decision. Let's delve into then what are the components of monitoring and evaluation, because as we say, it's a very much important study. Actually, in the elements of management, monitoring and evaluation become the center, because it gives you results to drive organization, it gives you results to point you at certain direction. The 4 components that we look at is indicators, data, collection methods, baseline data, targets. So the indicators, here we're talking about the measurable elements that are used to assess progress. In other words, the indicators are those elements that indicate whether this goal has been achieved or not. If, for instance, your goal is to see the Matric 24 learners pass rate of about 80% or so. In terms of indicators, you will be saying how many learners have passed matric. You might even have other indicators that says how many learners have passed with bachelor endorsement, how many learners have passed with the diploma or a certificate, all those kind of things. Because this helps you to assess whether you can safely say I've reached or I've achieved the objective. The other element is the element of data collection methods, of course, using surveys, interviews, questionnaires you can observe, because you can just go to an area and make an observation, and out of that you come out with some data that suggests what is going on. I'll give an example. If you go to an area like in a complex and you just observe, you find that almost every house there has the what do you call this, the DSTV dish. That is your only observation there. You have not gone into that house to assess whether there's a TV or not, but that observation can give you some insight to say, I can safely say majority of the people who stay here, they have TVs in their houses, by just simple observing that there's a DSTV decoder, DSTV dish attached to the house. The other issue, the baseline data. This is very much important that I think many times people ignore that. This is the initial data against which future progress is measured. For instance, when you say this year, Department of Education, if this year were to say our target is to have our grade 12 learners achieving 90% pass rate, 90% pass rate. So they don't just thumb suck and say, no, it's not percent. We must check the baseline. What is the baseline saying? The baseline will be saying for the past 5 years, the metric result has been hovering between 70 to 80% or 82% or so. So based on that, you begin to ask questions. If indeed for the past 5 years, they've been hovering around 70 to 82% or so, why can I have an objective of about saying we'll target 90%? Because it's a stretch from 82%, for instance, to 90%. So this baseline data, it helps us to even build our indicators, to build our goals, because it says this is the information that is there. So for me to move from here to here, while the baseline is saying this, so I must use the baseline to be able to say this is where I can go. I'm sitting at this percentage, I'm sitting at 82%. Maybe the target that is feasible for me is 85%. It cannot be 90%. That is the importance of baseline. But also the target, I think, which I've touched a bit, that is the predetermined goals to be achieved within certain time frames. Like for instance, we're saying to get 90% metric results in metric pass rate in 2024. That is the target that this department wants to achieve. So all this, that if this is the target, what is going to be your indicator? What's going to what kind of method you're going to use to collect data? What is your baseline data? Let's look at this. Your target is to get the 90% metric pass rate, as I've said. So your indicators, you could have many indicators. You could then say how many the number of students that have passed metric results, metric in 2024. You could also check how many students have got a bachelor pass, how many have got diploma, how many have got higher certificate. You might even go and say and want to find this in terms of provinces, because when you analyze this information, at the end, it will tell you that Limpopo has done well, Gauteng has done well, and then that means when you begin to plan in the next year, for 2025, for instance, you can use this data as a baseline to say this is what we can do. Perhaps in Limpopo, we couldn't, there were these issues, in Gauteng there were these issues. There could have been reasons why there was no a progress with regards to this. So those are most important components in the M&E that we need to take them seriously. So the other issues that we are going to look at is the monitoring and evaluation plan. It's very much important because we need to have the plan. Of course, you know, when you come to enroll for this course at Teacher Training Academy, you'll get a detailed plan, and we can show you until you understand it what the plan contains. Here we're trying to brief here, but the most of them all is that we must define the objectives, and these objectives must be clear, concise, and achievable. In other words, you still apply the SMART principles when you define objectives. The other issue is indicators, because we have said, I mean, I was explaining about the components of the M&E, and we talked about the example of a 90% metric results for 2024. That is the target that, or the goal that the Department of Education may have. And the result indicators out of that, we're saying how many learners or students have passed metric results, how many have got bachelor pass, how many have got diploma. You can build many indicators as you want. The percentage of those who have got, you might even want to check how many girls, female students, how many male students, you know, and look also regionally. So you can put indicators around that, because at the end of the day, the indicators must help you to do something about, so that the results that you get can be reliable. But the most important issue is the issue of data collection. Who is going to collect this data, and what kind of data is going to be collected, and when this data is going to be collected, where is this data going to be collected, and how? So that is very much important. So that means in your team, that is, for instance, because this is an M&E framework, now it tells you that you must put systems in place to ensure that there are people who must collect data. There are people who maybe is the enumerators or the data collectors, whatever that you can call them. But what kind of data is it collected? Because I like this issue, because there's this concept of SMART principle that I'll come to it when we go to the next 2 slides or so. Many times we collect data that doesn't talk to the objective. You want to assess whether the Department of Education has achieved its target of 90% matric pass rate in 2024. And the data that you are using, it doesn't help you to get to that objective. The data that you are using, it is maybe outdated. The data that you are using is not even talking to the subject matter. So then we have a problem. But the issue of when is this data, how frequent is this data must be collected, because it's very much important. Data change every time. I'll give an example. If you look from last year, election pollsters have been giving polls in terms of how the elections will be. And we know in February, January, February, March as well, and April as well. And they are giving, because now we are close to elections, they have enough data to work on. So that is why the frequency of data is very much important. Because if you are evaluating something, this program has not really done so much, and you are collecting data at the beginning of that, but you want to use this data, maybe a year later, that data won't be relevant. Because that project or policy, by that time, 11 months later, there's been a lot of improvement, a lot of movement. So the frequency, so that's why we say maybe data can be collected every week or monthly, bi-monthly, biannual, so that the data that we have at the time when you say these are the findings, it must still be data that can be relied upon. But where is this data going to be found? Maybe it's in your department, maybe it's in the external people, maybe it's the data that is in the data sets, the data that is on the internet, is the data that is somewhere. And the how, now we talk about the data collection methods. Are you going to do it? Are you going to interview people? Are you going to conduct surveys? So those are the things that you look at. But let's look at the issue of data analysis. How are we, what kind of methods are we going to use this? Are we going to use the qualitative methodology, quantitative methodology? Remember, in terms of the quantitative and the qualitative methodology, they are all okay, but many times it's preferable to use quantitative number, quantitative. Why? Because you are able to measure them more than as compared to qualitative. So quantitative many times is what we prefer that students can use to measure, because you can measure really, not that you can't measure in qualitative, but quantitative would give you numbers, would give you percentages, would give you aggregate, would give you all this, so that you can make an informed decision. Let's delve into the types of evaluation. Many times people who are in policy, for instance, they have to deal with these issues. You have to do the policy evaluation, but when you go to evaluation, we must know what type of evaluation, or are we doing all types of evaluation, combining both of them. Of course, the first one is formative evaluation. Here it says it's conducted during the development of the program. When we are busy with the development of that initiative, that's why it's that formative evaluation. The process evaluation talks about the processes that, of course, you will follow during the implementation. The outcome evaluation, you are looking at the immediate effects of the program. Many times we look at process evaluation, outcome evaluation, impact evaluation. The impact evaluation is look at long term. I want to clarify this because I think at times people misunderstand this. Outcome and impact evaluation, these two are not the same. The outcome, it looks at short to medium term results, while impact look at long term. But when those results are long term, are they sustainable? That's the most important. The effects, if you want to change socioeconomic conditions of people, that is an impact evaluation. It's a long term. As this program had an impact in terms of the socioeconomic conditions of that community, that's a long term. But those effects have to be sustainable. Let's look at the setting of indicators, the SMART principles that, this language, there's a noise about it. We must do smart, we must be smart, all indicators must be smart. But at times I feel like this too much noise about smart. It is not going into the deeper, actually, definition or explanation of the SMART principles when setting indicators. Our indicators, they are only smart when they talk to the goals. If they don't talk to the goals, it doesn't matter how much they tell you, it cannot be smart. It cannot be smart. It doesn't matter whether it's a performance management system, whether it's an annual performance plan, whether it's a strategy, whether it's an implementation plan, whatever it is, it cannot be smart if the goal is not, if the indicators are not aligned to the goals. You want to measure whether the Department of Education has achieved its target of 90% metric pass. But the indicators that we are using to measure this goal, I'm not talking to that goal. Because it seems as the SMART principles, as others would like to focus much on, it is mainly when you say it must be measurable, so it must be like your number or percentage, it must be achievable. So I want to talk, this is, I think one day we just need to have a session on indicators only. It's a big issue, honestly. You go and look at the strategies, the performance agreements, the evaluation plans. You go and check all those things. You will find a lot of problems. And because of these issues, you don't have the SMART indicators. You can't achieve your goals because remember, the indicators are the instruments that you use to measure. So if I'm going to develop a certain policy, but my instruments that I'm using to gauge whether I'm in the right track or not are wrong, so it's a crisis. You go to private organizations, you find this crisis. You go to public organizations, you find this crisis. You go to not-for-profit organizations, you find this crisis. So it doesn't matter. It is everywhere. And for me, I think that is a big issue that we need to find ways, how can we deal with it? I will really be happy if we could start to look into that. You know, we are available to assist in this regard. It's a very much important. I've seen it many times. I've read many documents that I've realized that actually some people, when they speak of SMART principles, they are not really understanding the main issue of this is that your indicators must talk to the goal. It doesn't matter you think it's measurable in the manner you understand it, but if they don't talk to the goal, they cannot be the indicators that we can rely on. Let's give example of the indicators. Number of male employees at Trisha Training Academy, that is the indicator, because it is clear how many is want to measure the male employees, and it's clear male employees. Percentage of students who passed business development course, improved delivery of IT infrastructure. This is a qualitative indicator, improved delivery of IT infrastructure, because it's difficult to really measure that. You may have some sense in terms of indeed it has been improved, but it is difficult to measure. That's why I was saying it's important to use a quantitative methodology. The screen size of all desktop monitors at Trisha, this is quantitative as well, because it's talking about the size, you can measure it. So you have many examples. I've given many, you know, when I was talking to the target of the 90% metric pass 2024, that you could look at that, and there are so many, whether you know policy, you know, programs, there are so many. If you talking about you know, state SA issues, the stats in terms of employment, the labor survey every quarter, and that we, government and everyone, they use it to know the employment rate in our country. And because of that information, that means your response strategy in terms of the employment crisis will be looking at that. Who are these people who are not employed? Are they the graduates? Are they not the graduates? So those indicators must be able to help you so that you can be able to respond properly. Because if they are not clear indicators, you may not know how to respond to that. If, for instance, let's look at the indicator, the one which says number of male employees at Richard Training Academy. If Richard Training Academy wants to have a lot of female employees, and maybe currently Richard Academy, maybe let's say it has 50 employees, and currently it stands at 35 of those are male employees, it means only 25 are female. So what does that mean? If Richard wants to increase, to make sure that the company has a lot of female employees, so that means this information is giving us data that you have a lot of men that are employees, and you need to, well, that means in your recruitment strategy now, your recruitment, your adverts should begin to say preferable women, preferable women. I see a lot of adverts where organizations will say preferable women or preferable disability. Some of these things, people just like to put them. They're not based on data, because if they were based on data and what the company wants to go, you'll find the results that many times women or people with disability would have been appointed. But that's not the case. Why? Because they are just putting these things. It is not based on the data that is there in the company to say we need to start to hire more women. That's why our advert must be able to say preferable women. So it's a slogan that it is there out, and it's rare to even find the advert that say preferable young people. Young people are only considered for interns, because the policy says they must be a youth, and that is below age of 35. So what I'm saying is that the information must, all what we do, whether you're advertising, you want to prefer women, you want to prefer people with disability, this must be based on the data to say we don't have people with disability in the organization. And for us to get that, that means as we recruit, we need to ensure that our recruitment is clear that we prefer people with disability. Why? Because we want to increase the number of employees who have disability in the organization. So that is why the indicators are very much important, the quantitative ones, because they help us at the end to respond to what the evaluation findings are telling us. The other issues, the collection methods, I think I've spoken about the quantitative, the qualitative, and the mixed methods. Quantitative, of course, surveys, questionnaires, basis, qualitative, the interviews. So I think I've spoken, I don't have to really repeat about this. I've spoken in detail about the kind of methodologies that you can use as you collect data, and the issue of data analysis and interpretation. The techniques that we use to analyze data, whether you are using the statistics systems, the data analysis systems that we are using to analyze your data, because data has come. This data must be analyzed. But when this data is analyzed, it doesn't end there, because to analyze, you are just looking at this data and it gives you some information, but it doesn't end there. We need to interpret what does this information say is saying to us. What does this information is telling your organization? If, for instance, we are seeing an upward trend in terms of job losses in the mining sector, agricultural, maybe manufacturing sector, what does that mean? That's where interpretation comes. That means there is something that we must zoom into that in the sectors. Maybe there's a drought, it's affecting agriculture. Maybe in terms of mining, the issues of illegal mining perhaps is creating problems for the licensed mines. Maybe it's difficult maybe to send some of the minerals out, maybe it's becoming expensive, or what there could be reasons. That is the interpretation. We need to know, why is this, what does this mean when I see the numbers saying when somebody goes for birthday, they say, no, this is my birthday. So that it means something. You're growing, and other things must begin to change. You are not younger anymore. You need to grow somehow. So that is the interpretation of that data that we've analyzed. We must be able to interpret, because based on that interpretation, that's what we need to get our results. But of course, when we say visualization, results can be what we have interpreted. You can use your graphs and whatever, the charts, to visualize whatever that you need to visualize there. Let's look about the reporting. Now let's look about the types of reports. Of course, your progress reports or the evaluation reports, because based on what you find now, remember, you have analyzed, you have interpreted, you have got the information. We need to get the reports, the progress reports on how this policy is doing, how the program is doing, the dissemination of this information, to whom this information must go. That means there must be a list of stakeholders. Remember last time we discussing about the stakeholders, and we also touched based on mainly actually on the power interest grid of stakeholders. So we look at those issues, because there must be stakeholders that must have access this reports or funding, because they need it for decision making. Maybe it's your HR, it's your finance, it's your policy division, it's your minister, it's your DG. They want this report. It's your chief executive, it's your funders, it's your beneficiaries. They want they want to understand, so that they can also make their decisions based on that. So that is very much important. But the other issue, the issue of using of these findings, the utilization. Why do we need this? These results must be used to improve the design and implementation of programs and policies. Because if we're not using these results, what then is the purpose of M&E? This is where the M&E is expressed positively. It doesn't matter the results are negative to what you were checking there, but these results must be used. Remember, whether the results say we didn't perform, we still use those results for the purpose of learning. But these findings, that's why we need them to improve the design and implementation of the programs. Let's look at the challenges that we have in the M&E. The data quality issue. Sometimes the data that's come is inaccurate or is incomplete. Somebody says, I've achieved this, but the data that is coming there is either it's not talking to the target, or it's a data that has some missing information, that a receiver of that information is unable to make determination whether this target has been achieved or not, because the information is not complete. The other issue, the resource constraints. You know, one day we'll talk about establishing M&E system. One of the key issues with that system is that we need to have resources. So that is the same issue with the M&E, because that one we're also talking about M&E. The resources, it must be in place. If you're not going to put resources, forget about your M&E framework. You are just talking because you want to talk maybe about it. But you need the resources. So that's why we say these are the challenges that M&E, in terms of budget, in terms of the time that's allocated to do that, in terms of the capacity, do you have capacity? So if you have organization of 5,000 people, or of 200 people or 300 people, do you have people that are in the M&E unit? If we don't have, why can't we look at the internal and train people so that they can come and perform this task? Because it's very much important in an organization. The issue of stakeholder engagement is very much important. We need to have to get buy-in and participation of our stakeholders in the M&E process. These policies we're doing, the programs we're doing, if these stakeholders are not at the center of this, we'll have a lot of challenges. And I've explained when I was talking about the stakeholder interest. Great. Now, let's talk about the best practice of M&E. It could be the regular monitoring, make sure that your stakeholders are involved, but also you must be flexible. You know, flexible in the sense that don't be rigid in terms of your requirements. Maybe in terms of data collection, this is the kind of data that you want, and you want the data to be exactly as they be flexible, because somebody might give you information that may not be written as that, but in it they could be much informed. That's why we say be flexible as well, whether also in terms of schedule, but also the issue of capacity. Build the capacity. That is the greatest things. Build capacity, build internal capacity in the MNE, and that you will be very much successful. Thank you for giving time to watch our lesson on the MNE framework. We like to thank you. We want to encourage you to go and enroll if you want to really get more details of this course. It's a very much interesting course. Enroll at richacademy.coza, or you can email us at info@richacademy.coza, or WhatsApp 072-053-1753. That's where you would be able to enroll. We are so experienced in the field of monitoring and evaluation. You won't regret to register for this course. You are in the NGO sector, you are in the private sector, you are in the public sector. You are just someone that wants to understand MNE, maybe you're a student. You are busy with your research and stuff like that. We are here to help you. You can engage with us on those platforms that many have indicated. And I want to thank you again. Good night and God bless.